The accident. The Orion Galactic Summit was the pinnacle of interstellar diplomacy, a place where species from every corner of the galaxy convened to negotiate, share knowledge, and maintain the fragile peace that held the stars together. It was supposed to be a routine session, a day of formal speeches and carefully rehearsed negotiations. Delegates from over 50 species floated through the station's massive central atrium, exchanging pleasantries and subtle barbs in equal measure. Humans, of course, were a small presence. The newest members of the Galactic Council, they were still seen as something of a curiosity, an unpredictable species from a dangerous, chaotic world. Some species admired their tenacity, others feared their recklessness. Then the explosion happened. A rogue asteroid, 1 in a trillion, tore through the summit's orbit, striking the station with devastating precision. The impact reverberated through the station's hull like a death knell. Alarms blared, bulkheads sealed, and chaos erupted. Thousands of delegates scrambled for safety, their composure evaporating as the true extent of the damage became clear. The station's structural integrity was failing. Entire sections were collapsing, and fires spread unchecked. Amid the pandemonium, the humans acted differently. While other species panicked, froze, or retreated to their escape pods, the humans charged into danger. "Lieutenant Carter, we've got structural breaches in quadrants E7 and F3, barked Commander Elena Vasquez over her comms. "Evacuation. Routes are blocked and the station's core is destabilizing. If it blows, we're all dead." "Copy that," Carter replied, already moving. "I've got a team heading to F3. We'll clear the debris and stabilize the core manually." "Manually? Are you insane?" came the incredulous voice of an Eltarian delegate, crackling over the open comms channel. "That's a death sentence." "Maybe," Carter said with a grim smile. "But it beats sitting around waiting to die." Deathworlder determination. The Galactic Council had long debated humanity's place among the stars. Deathworlders, they called them, inhabitants of planets so hostile that mere survival was a daily battle. Earth was a world of raging storms, shifting tectonic plates, and apex predators. To thrive there, humanity had evolved to endure and adapt in ways most species found incomprehensible. This reputation was both a blessing and a curse. While some council members admired humanity's resilience, others viewed them as unpredictable, dangerous, and frankly insane. Today, those same traits were their salvation. Carter's team, clad in bulky exosuits, cut through layers of twisted metal and flaming debris. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, and the air was thick with smoke and sparks. Every few minutes, another explosion rocked the structure, threatening to send them all tumbling into the void. "Keep moving," Carter shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. His team didn't hesitate. They crawled through collapsing corridors, rigged makeshift supports from anything they could find, and extinguished fires with ruthless efficiency. It was grueling, dangerous work, but they thrived under pressure. Meanwhile, the aliens watched in stunned silence. From the safety of their escape pods, they saw humans tackling problems no sane being would dare to approach. The humans didn't just face danger. They seemed to embrace it. "They're not normal," muttered Karek, a member of the insectoid Varnak species. The sight of a human hauling a massive beam off a pinned alien delegate left his mandibles quivering in disbelief. No species would willingly risk their lives like that. "They're not risking their lives," an older voice interjected. It belonged to Thalax, a grizzled Darnathan war veteran who had seen his fair share of battles. "They're betting everything on each other. That's what makes them dangerous." The impossible, repair reaching the core, was only half the battle. The station's fusion reactor, a marvel of engineering, was on the brink of meltdown. Its fail-safe systems were offline, and the delicate balance of plasma flows within the core was rapidly destabilizing. If they didn't act fast, the resulting explosion would vaporize the entire station and everyone on it. "Elena, we're at the core," Carter reported. His voice crackled over the comms, distorted by the electromagnetic interference from the reactor. "It's worse than we thought. Cooling rods are jammed and the containment field is collapsing. If we don't fix this in 10 minutes, the entire station goes up. Do what you can, Vasquez replied. And Carter, good luck. The team sprang into action. Engineers rerouted power from auxiliary systems, mechanics welded cracks in the reactor's casing, and Carter himself descended into the core's blistering heat to manually reset the cooling system. It was a hellish task, every movement a battle against searing temperatures and lethal radiation. "We're running out of time," shouted Dr. Lena Park, the team's physicist. Sweat streamed down her face as she calculated plasma flow rates on a portable console. "Then work faster," Carter snapped. His exosuit's cooling systems were failing, and his hands were blistered from the heat. But he kept going. The alternative was unthinkable. The alien delegates monitoring the situation could hardly believe their eyes. They had seen humans accomplish remarkable feats before, but this was beyond comprehension. "How are they still standing?" Carrick whispered, his voice tinged with awe. "Because failure isn't an option for them," Thalax said grimly. "They'll burn themselves alive if it means saving the rest of us." The breaking point, as the clock ticked down, the humans pushed themselves beyond their limits. Dr. Park, who had been tirelessly recalculating plasma flow adjustments for hours, finally collapsed from exhaustion, her console slipping from her. "Grasp." She waved off offers to evacuate, insisting she could continue to guide the team remotely. Nearby, another engineer fainted from smoke inhalation, but was revived by a medkit injection and shoved back into the fray. Carter's exosuit alarms screamed warnings of imminent failure. Radiation levels were critical, and the reinforced cooling systems were no longer functional. His visor fogged up as sweat poured down his face, his body screaming at him to stop. But he pressed on, teeth gritted, hands steady as he manually adjusted the final cooling rod. The radiation was eating through his gloves, searing his skin with every move. "Carter, pull out!" Vasquez's voice came through the comms, desperate, but authoritative. "You've done enough, get out of there." "Not yet," Carter growled, his voice strained. The rod groaned into place, the system hissing and sparking as the reactor's readings began to stabilize. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. With one final effort, Carter locked the rod into its housing and activated the emergency stabilization protocol. The reactor roared to life, the containment field flaring a brilliant blue. The alarm ceased, and a calm, automated voice announced, "Reactor stabilized." Critical failure averted. The room was silent except for the faint hum of machinery. Carter slumped against a console, his vision fading. The last thing he heard was the distant sound of cheering over the comms before darkness took him. The aftermath Carter's team was evacuated to the station's medical bay, their bodies battered and broken, but alive. Vasquez stood vigil by Carter's side as he lay in a stasis pod, his body recovering from severe radiation burns and exhaustion. She watched the medical monitors intently, silently willing them to stabilize. In the days following the incident, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The surviving delegates, many of whom had been rescued by the humans, gave impassioned speeches about the bravery and selflessness of their saviors. Species that had once dismissed humanity as reckless now praised them as heroes. "They risked everything for us," said Carrick, addressing the assembly. "Not just their lives, but their very survival as a species. What kind of beings do that? The kind who believe in something greater than themselves," Thalax answered solemnly. "They don't just survive, they inspire." Carter awoke. Days later, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. Vasquez was the first to greet him, her expression a mix of relief and admiration. "Did we make it?" he croaked, his voice barely audible. "We did," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved thousands of lives, Carter. The galaxy owes you a debt it can never repay."